Hello, everyone. So, we're going to be talking about hoppers in this video in case you want to write about it for Essay 2. So, first of all, just to introduce this movie, it is Pixar's 30th animated feature, directed by Daniel Chong, who is probably best known as the creator of the Cartoon Network show We Bare Bears. So that's who this guy is. Something interesting about the movie that I wanted to mention that will become significant later is originally there were going to be penguins in this movie as the main animal instead of beavers, but Chong changed it to beavers because the head of Pixar thought there were way too many penguin movies out there. And the fact that he changed it to beavers, I think, really is significant to what the movie is communicating, considering the roles that beavers play in the environment, which we will come back to. But speaking of what the movie is communicating, in terms of its message, Disney allegedly wanted the team who made this movie to downplay the planned environmentalist message they had. So, someone who worked on the movie told this to The Hollywood Reporter. I don't know if it's true. And Chong himself denied this and said that the movie was not censored or anything, that its message just evolved as it was being developed and made. And either way, I think the message here is quite nuanced and layered. I don't think it's simply nature good, humans bad. I think there's more to it than that, and that's what we're going to explore in this lecture. Before we dive deep into hoppers, I wanted to provide some context because context is important to understanding any text. This was released in 2026, and in terms of things that are happening right now, I thought the AI boom was relevant to this movie because, as we all know, AI relies on these data centers, and they are infamous for the effects they have on the environment. So I think that's relevant to what this movie's message is, so I'm just throwing that out there. In terms of socio-cultural context, I would say that with these new technologies like AI that have negative effects on the environment, we've sort of become more conscious of that. And in terms of citational context, this is definitely related to Avatar, which they even bring up in the movie, which I thought was very funny. But it is a similar sort of story where we have someone entering a new body in order to commune with this society whose land is about to be destroyed. So, yeah, definitely Avatar related, and I think that just helps signal that this is going to be an environmentalist movie. So, in terms of symbols, of course, you have to analyze at least one symbol in the paper, and I decided to pick some big ones that I thought were relevant. So I'm not going to go too deep into these because I did have a little activity I wanted us to do with them where you provide your thoughts. But to say a few things briefly, the sound trees, I think, represent humans trying to dominate nature because it is a piece of technology disguised as a tree. And then we have the Beltway, which I think is an even bigger symbol of human dominance, which is portrayed as not a good thing, especially if other animals are hurt. And then we have George's crown, which I think represents a lot of things. I think it represents that the animals aren't so natural as we might have expected because they have, monarchies apparently. And I have no idea where they got those crowns, but as the movie references, so it could mean that animals behave in ways we don't expect, that don't seem too natural. And then we also have the fact that the animals make a new crown for George. So I think that might also represent working together and community, which the film says is important to survival among animals and humans alike. And then we have, going along with that, George's paw print, which he puts on Mabel because he trusts her. And trust is a big theme in the movie as well, whether the humans can be trusted, whether Mabel can be trusted. And she does make mistakes, obviously, but ultimately she solves the problem that she caused. And I think the paw print is a symbol of trust and a symbol of collaboration to help find balance between the human and animal worlds, which is what the whole film says we need to have, of course. I wanted to talk about some characters. Let's talk about Mabel, our main character, first of all. So, obviously, she does care for animals, which is evidenced by the first scene in the movie where she saves the turtle from the classroom and sets it free, only for it to be scooped back up, sadly. So, we know she loves animals, but she also loves her grandmother. And I actually talked about this movie with a student last semester, just casually, and we discussed whether Mabel's motivations for wanting to save the Glade are good, because they are a bit sus when you think about it. Does she want to save the Glade because it's the right thing to do, or does she want to save it because she has memories of spending time there with her grandmother? I'm not sure. I think at the end of the day, it's probably a mix of her love of animals and her love of her grandmother that motivates her. But that said, we also should note that she doesn't exactly vibe with the animals when she first meets them. She goes against pond rules. She thinks it's crazy that a bear would want to eat a beaver and stops that, which isn't conforming to the natural order, now is it? And it's also telling that when she tries to talk with the animals, they all sort of brush her off like the people she was trying to get to sign her petition. So yes, maybe she's not as at one with the natural world as she believes. So that leads me to George. So George trusts the humans and believes they are good, but Mabel disagrees. She thinks that he is naive to believe this, and, she would know because she is from the human world. But George believes that humans and animals can coexist in one big place. And he is the king of the mammals who oppose the idea of squishing Jerry. And I think it's significant that he's the mammal king because, of course, beavers are mammals, humans are mammals. And I think that just opens up a question of whether humans and animals are really that different. And I think the fact that he's a beaver reinforces that idea that we're not so different, because beavers build dams, we build dams, in addition to many other things. The only huge difference I would say between George and Jerry is his building helps, whereas Jerry's building hurts. So the idea is altering the environment isn't bad per se, just don't hurt any animals or humans when you do it. So that leads me to Titus, who is George's foil. In other words, he is the anti-George, because he hates the humans, and not only that, but he believes in insect supremacy, which really comes out at the end when he turns on the amphibians, reptiles, and birds. So, he doesn't think everyone should coexist. Mabel says, we can still learn to live together, but he's like, nah, I'm good. I did think it was quite ironic that in order to achieve his ends, he has to become a human in a way when he becomes Robot Jerry. And that is in stark contrast to Mabel, who becomes a beaver in order to achieve her goals. So he becomes what he hates, and Mabel becomes what she loves. I thought that was an interesting contrast. And ironically, even though he would seem to be for the animals and their natural habitat, or what have you, he causes environmental destruction when he sets that fire. So that just shows that his insect supremacy is not good for anyone. It's not good for humans or animals or the environment. Let's talk about Jerry. Jerry is clearly not the villain of this story, which is what we might expect if this were a simple humans bad, nature good story. He's not unsympathetic, at least not completely, and I would argue he isn't presented as evil. Well, he's not presented as evil. He's just ignorant of the plight of the animals. He even says at one point, they're all just animals. But he does come around, and I guess we can give him credit for not killing the animals. He just sort of drives them away from the glade. But eventually he's like, let's figure this out together with Mabel. In other words, how can I complete my project without hurting the animals? So that just reinforces that the movie isn't saying all human construction, all human activities are bad. It's just saying that we should be more conscious of animal life and should respect it. So, what even is natural? I think that's a big question the movie brings up, because the Beltway is not abandoned, it's simply rerouted, and the Beltway, of course, isn't natural. And that opens up the question of what does it even mean to be natural? So the film, I think, says that unnatural acts like building the Beltway are not inherently bad, so long as animals and humans are not negatively affected. Like I alluded to earlier, the animals have crowns. There's nothing natural about that. Is that bad, that they have crowns? Perhaps not. Dr. Sam and her team think they understand the natural world, but then they see what the animals get up to via Mabel, and it turns out, hey, maybe these animals don't act as quote-unquote naturally as we thought they do. They do have their pond rules where they obey the food chain, but when they start collaborating, they drop that. We see Ellen the bear working together with Loaf the beaver, and the idea that she would ever want to eat him sort of goes out the window. So these animals, they don't follow nature necessarily. And the council, who ostensibly say we believe in the food chain, but this human has gone too far, we believe in nature and the natural order and our home not being developed, they ironically disobey nature a lot when they lift a freaking shark out of the water, which I thought was cool and also very unnatural. So the whole idea is these animals They do not follow the laws of nature necessarily, and that could be good or bad, like the collaboration among the mammals to save Jerry, good. Sending a shark to eat Jerry, bad. So, yeah, the film definitely questions what it means to be natural and if natural things are always good. The Dam. So, here we see Tom Lizard karate chopping the dam, and I did think that scene was very important to the message, and I mean, it comes at the very end, which makes sense because we talked about how the main point of something is usually at the end. So, here's the thing. This is a very ironic scene. We have the animals destroying a beaver dam to save Beaverton and its human inhabitants. So they're destroying their environment, their natural environment. If you consider a beaver dam natural, I mean, I guess you could argue it isn't, but they destroy what they were trying to preserve in order to save the humans and create one big place, as George puts it, where the humans and the animals can coexist. So yeah, I think that is the message summed up. Humans and animals have to find a way to coexist, even if that means going against nature, you see. So, all that said, I do believe this movie presents a very nuanced and layered message. It's not simply saying humans are bad, humans should not develop land, and animals should have their environments left alone. It is saying, hey, let's live with these animals in one big place where we find a way to coexist and we build things and they build things and no one is harmed. So, I found that very interesting, and it really forces us to question whether we're so different from animals, especially with the beaver protagonist, because beavers alter their environment just like we do, you know? And it forces us to ask, what does it mean to be natural? Because you could say that us building data centers and all sorts of infrastructure, that could be seen as natural, you know, because, I mean, we're naturally predisposed to do it with our hands that are adept at tool making or what have you. So, you know, it makes us question what it means to be natural. It forces us to ask whether protecting animals and the planet means necessarily walking back our progress, which could be seen as natural in and of itself. So yeah, the solution definitely to this problem of animals losing their homes to human development, the solution is we have to figure out a way to coexist with the animals. Because honestly, that's probably the most realistic path forward. Because according to the movie, you know, we're seeing all sorts of technological development in our world with things like AI, and there really is no going back. I mean, the film itself also presents technology in the form of the hopping technology as something that is not necessarily bad, because it does help us understand nature better. So, yeah, technology, not a bad thing. We just need to make sure it is not harming the animals, but helping them, etc., etc. Those were my thoughts on Hoppers. Very interesting movie, and not as simple as it seems. I hope this gave you some ideas for the paper if you choose to write about this, and I will see y'all in the next one. Thank you, guys.
Please comment the answers to or email me the answers to the following questions. 1. What is one instance of irony in the film? 2. What is the scene that encapsulates the main point of the film? 3. Which character is the foil to George?